Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's now 3 o'clock. Boy, crazy night in the NBA. The Knicks do the unthinkable and take a 2-0 series lead on the defending champs on the road as they take out the Boston Celtics again. In the other game, the Thunder score an NBA record for points in the first half. They rout the Nuggets to even up their series at one game apiece. Game 3 will be tomorrow night from Denver. We have one game tonight, the Warriors and Wolves, game 2 from Target Center. Minnesota favored by 10.5 after losing game 1. Of course, no Steph Curry tonight. He's out with the strained hamstring, and it's going to be out roughly 7 to 10 days. No timetable has been set for his return, and no one knows if he'll be back in this series. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing coming up next. Michael Holton going to join me in studio at 5:20. A little Holton on hoops here on the Rip City Drive.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men. Call 1-800-DIVORCE. Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Doing.
And the more you talk, the more nonsense that flies out.
That's the problem with media is everyone can just say whatever the they want.
Tatum across midcourt with 10. Top of the key with 8. Defended by Robinson with 7. Right wing 3. Crossover. Foul line with 4. Left block. Step back. Stolen by Bridges. Bridges chucks it down court. They've done it again. They've done it again. The New York Knicks take both in Boston and a 2-0 lead heading back to the Mecca.
Shea gives it left corner to Hogan. Pump fake it. No maneuverability on Jokic. Gets it back in the corner from Shea. Triggers a 3. That's nothing but net. Cha-ching a Thunder money ball. Gilgeous-Alexander with 7 to shoot. Drives and kicks to Joe Open. Snaps off a long angle right three-pointer. Cha-ching a Thunder money ball. Guarded by Brown. Steps away, fires a 3 of his own. It's online. Got it. Cha-ching another Thunder money ball. How about 9.5? Ousmane Dieng rebounds. Staccato applause breaks out at Paycom Center. The Thunder have even this best of 7 Western Conference semifinal series. Emphatically in game 2. 149-106. And historic Thunder explosion escorts Denver out of town for Game 3 in the Mile High City on Friday.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Tatum across midcourt with 10. Top of the key with 8. Defended by Robinson with 7. Right wing 3. Crossover. Foul line with 4. Left block. Step back. Stolen by Bridges. Bridges chucks it down court. They've done it again. They've done it again. The New York Knicks take both in Boston and a 2-0 lead heading back to the Mecca.
Well, I'll ask the question again. How fun have these playoffs been? Yesterday was awesome. I did not expect the Knicks to win game number 2. I certainly didn't expect them to win game number 1. But the way they're able to come back again and to watch the Celtics, the defending champs, just melt down. And to see the 2 biggest stars late in that game do absolutely nothing was just mind-blowing. And Brunson, or his nickname now, Brunson Burner, Jalen Brunson is simply developing into maybe the best small guard in the NBA. With Steph Curry being at the age he's at now, Brunson may be the best small guard in the NBA. He's making a case for it with his late game heroics, his dependence. He is dependable in late game situations in crunch time. It was unbelievable. And the way the Knicks were able to really tighten things up in the fourth. And we'll get into this today, but Jalen Brunson's doing a lot of different things right now that are making him elite. I'm a big fan of his. There's only one thing he does that's annoying, and outside of that, he's just a good dude that plays really hard, and he's really good at basketball. His need to try to trick the officials into foul calls is annoying, and I wish that he would lose that. But outside of that, this guy is just solid gold. Solid gold. He's got that Trae Young where he wants to try and trick and maneuver his body. He wants to fool the officials. But that was awesome. The Knicks are now up 2-0, and they're heading to New York. And as you can imagine, Madison Square Garden on Saturday afternoon at 12:30 is going to be off the chain. They're going to be loud. They're obnoxious already, and they are feeling it. because they have a chance to knock off the Boston Celtics and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. And all of a sudden now the Knicks look like legitimate NBA final contenders, don't they? Now this series is not over, and they've got a lot of work to do. And I guarantee you Boston is going to come out. Whatever they've got on the inside will be let out in game number 3. But I am going to sit back and watch. I'm intrigued to see what the response is going to be. I want to see how the Knicks are going to play. It's going to be awesome. And with each missed shot and each bricked 3, the pressure is going to continue to mount on Boston because they're the favorite. They're expected to win. They were supposed to get back to the finals and maybe go back-to-back. And the problem is they're not getting quality play from their 2 clutch guys right now, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. In fact, I was looking at the numbers, the fourth quarter numbers to be precise. In that fourth quarter last night, Jaylen Brown, 0 for 4 from the field, 0 for 1 from downtown, 0 points. And Jason Tatum, 1 of 5 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, and 4 points. So your 2 stars who are making the bulk of the money, a combined 1 of 9 for 4 points and 0 of 3 from downtown. The Celtics, after missing 45 threes in game 1, they were 10 of 40 in game number 2. They shot 20 fewer threes. In fact, they shot less than their seasonal average, which was close to 50. So they did. They actually altered the way that they play a bit. And that's probably from all the conversation and the noise that they heard. But as we've seen throughout the course of the playoffs thus far, it's very, very simple. And it's really been like this ever since I've been a boy. When you have superstar players, guys that you lean on to be bucket getters, when your superstars are being outplayed by the opposing team's superstars, you're going to have a hard time winning games. And that's really what this entire playoff run has been like for everybody involved. Minnesota hammered the Lakers in round 1 because Anthony Edwards was the best superstar on the floor. Luka and LeBron were not. Take a look around. It's happening in every series. Why did the Nuggets win game number 1 in Oklahoma City? Because their superstar, the best player on the planet, Nikola Jokic, was unbelievable with 42 points, 22 boards, and 6 assists. And so that's going to be critical. Also, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were the 2 best stars in that opening round series against the Clippers. So pick your series, look at who's got the advantage, and that usually comes down to their star players getting the job done. And right now, the Celtics stars are not getting the job done. But I couldn't believe they won that game. Like, that shocked me. The end of that game when it went down, and Tatum didn't even get a shot off. He had the ball stolen from him. And I was like, wow. Like, that was one of those moments where I was literally stunned. When the Celtics jumped out to that big lead early, I thought, yeah, this is going exactly how I expected it would go. But what I love about the Knicks, and I've mentioned this throughout the course of the year, there's a certain togetherness with this group, with this year's Knicks, and we saw it last year as well. And it probably comes from that Villanova personality. And they clearly listen to their coach. Tom Thibodeau is crazy, and he likes to play his guys a ton of minutes, and he expects toughness from them. He expects them to be committed defensively. Well, they obviously listen to him because they play hard for him. And I like Coach Thibodeau. He's old school. He's kind of a tough guy, but, man, he's doing a heck of a job with this group, and they play hard for him. But this team's got a togetherness. They play for each other. And depending on the night, they have different guys on the floor who are willing to do whatever it takes. So I was impressed with their effort. And what they did is, even when they got down, we saw this in game 1 and 2, they don't stop being who they are. They continue to look for opportunities to push the ball in transition. And because they don't stop and they continue to, get after it, they create opportunities for themselves. So when they get down by 20, because they continue to push tempo and look for opportunities, boom, you get a couple of buckets and a 3. And before you know it, you take that 20-point deficit and you're only down 12. And you feel like you're in the game, you got a chance. But that comes from that relentless pursuit that we see from this group. And I really think it's awesome. Now, in the other game, like, Denver didn't even bother showing up. Talk about a team just being comfortable and content with the fact that they got the game 1 victory. The Nuggets last night didn't even bother to show. The Oklahoma City Thunder put up an NBA record 87 points in the first half, and they won the game by 43. Jokic didn't have a good game. The Thunder did a good job of defending him. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points and 8 assists. The Thunder put up 149 points. Now, again, I did not expect Denver to win the game, but I didn't expect them to get throttled by 43 points. Thanks for showing up, fellas. Really appreciate that. I guess we're okay with the split. I mean, goodness gracious. They just got hammered. And we got the next game in that series coming up tomorrow night. That's going to be fun to watch. Get Denver back home in front of their crowd, and we'll see how Oklahoma City responds. But the Thunder, 56% from the floor, 44% from downtown, game over. They got every shot they wanted, and they were comfortable early and often. Holmgren had a nice game, double-double with 15 and 11, 34 from Shai, and they just had multiple guys make contributions across the board. Yeah, you name it, and they got it done. Jay Will had a nice game. Lou Dort was effective. I mean, they were just all over it. So that's what we had. But the Knicks and the Celtics, this series is developing into one of the classics. It reminds me of a series, and this is why I'm anxious to see how the Boston Celtics respond. I remember back in 93, the number one seed in the West that eventually made it to the finals was the Phoenix Suns. And they got knocked out by the Bulls in game number 6 back at home in the desert. Jordan won his third straight championship. But in the first round of that year, the Suns, the overwhelming favorites, took on the Lakers in round number 1. And now keep in mind, this is the Lakers without Magic, right? They had some of the guys that were part of those teams in the 80s, like Worthy, but not Magic. This is the 8-seeded Lakers taking on the Suns in the first round. Now, back then, it was a 5-game series. The Lakers went into Phoenix, and they won game 1 and game 2. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. And I'll never forget the Suns head coach at the time, Paul Westphal, after the game, he said, well, we're going to go in, and we're going to win game 3, and then we're going to win game 4, and then we're going to bring it back home, and we'll take the series in 5. Well, guess what happened? The Suns won 2 close games in L.A. in games 3 and 4. They came back home. The Lakers took them to overtime in the clincher, and the Suns found a way to get it done. And they advanced after that series all the way to the NBA Finals. And that's the situation Boston finds himself in. They're still the better team with the deeper roster and the better talent, but they're being outplayed right now, and their star players, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, aren't getting it done. So how in the world do you scratch and claw to get yourself back in it? Now, other news, and I've got more thoughts on the Celtics and Knicks coming up here in a few minutes, but I want you to hear from Steph Curry, who's going to be out for, he's not going to play tonight, and it looks like at minimum 7 to 10 days. But he may not be back this series. And here he is talking about, how the injury happened, and then, what his thought process is now to have an injury in the postseason at this stage in his career at age 37. It's a different mindset.
But are you sure how it happened?
You said what?
How did it happen? And it looked like we just sort of looked up at one point and you were reaching for it. But was it on defense?
That defense possession, it's hard to really predict this stuff is what I'm learning. There were no warning signs or any weird feelings. I felt great the whole game up until that point. And then I made a little pivot move on defense and felt something. Didn't think it was nothing or anything. I felt like I could just go get it released and would be able to come back out. But with soft tissue stuff like that, it was one of those situations I could have done more damage if I tried to go back out. So obviously a tough break, but hopefully I'll be back soon. When you're 27, you feel like, you're obviously in your prime. Every opportunity I have now, you don't want.
Yeah, every opportunity you have now, it matters. It's a big deal. So there you have it. There's Steph Curry. Warriors and Timberwolves coming up tonight. Just one game tonight. And then we'll have 2 games tomorrow. And then we get 2 games on Saturday with the Knicks and Celtics at 12:30. I got more thoughts on that. Michael Holton going to join me in studio at 5:20 for Holton on Hoops. Celeste Trapp will stop by at 4:20 for more tips. And you can reach out to me on social at Chad and Rip City, or you can call the show at 503-248-0620. Got a Thursday edition of the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. I've got details on Monday, which is a big day here in Rip City. I'll give those to you next.
You have to be intentional about what you focus on.
All right, there's Steph Curry discussing the hamstring injury. I think we looked at it probably the soonest that he could potentially be back in.
You feel like, you're obviously in your prime. Obviously a tough break, but hopefully I'll be back soon. When you're 27, hopefully I'll be back soon. When you're 20.
I've always thought that Deacon Blues just feels like a summertime song. This is a song that's hard to be in a bad mood when you listen to it. Very smooth. All right. I played the wrong portion of that Steph Curry clip talking about his injury today. So I want to hit it again. So I want you to hear this. But here he is talking about, just this is the perspective of a guy that's been in the league a long time. Facing an injury in the postseason with a hamstring at 37 years of age. Here's Steph Curry.
When you're 27, you feel like, you're obviously in your prime. Like every opportunity I have now, you don't want it to be wasted on an injury. Like I'm thankful it wasn't worse, and I'm very aware of and appreciative that I have even a chance to come back. There's been injuries around the league that you've seen guys don't have that option. So I'm just trying to stay in that mind frame, and hopefully things work out where I can come back and we have a chance to keep doing something special. But injuries are always hard emotionally, just because none of this is guaranteed to be back, in this environment or in the playoff experience and have an opportunity like that. So when you get hurt, you have to be intentional about what you focus on.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And that's why I was, I felt bad for Steph, because when you get to a certain stage in your career and you're 37 years of age, there's no guarantees you're going to get back and have a look like this. And even though the Warriors aren't the favorites in the West, with the addition of Jimmy Butler and the way they play defense, they've got a chance to make a run this year. They do. And without Steph, they don't. And the problem is with your core aging, or your key guys are now, long in the tooth, and Draymond, Steph, and Jimmy, there's no guarantee they're going to get back and have a chance again. So that's the tough part. And, I think Steph Curry's, trying to understand that and deal with it. Also, in other injury news, I ran into one of Dame's family members today, someone that I run into on a regular basis. And I said, how's Dame's, state of mind right now? How is the mental health, with the Achilles injury? And by all accounts, Dame's in a good spot. Now, obviously, it's tough because he knows he's got a long road ahead of him in regards to the physical side of things with the rehab and the work. And, of course, when you rehab, a lot of that work is, by yourself. You're away from the team. So that part's going to be tough, but he's ready to take on the challenge. And he also knows that there are recent examples of guys who have come back from the Achilles injury and been able to have success. So I think he's got hope in that. But what I was told is that for Dame, one thing that's bringing a lot of, positive in his life right now with the injury is that he loves being a dad, and he loves to be with his kids. He loves to play the role of father and be a dad and be there for all the little things that that you miss a lot when you're working. And especially for Dame, traveling all the time, playing basketball. Well, the rehab and the work and the injury is going to allow him to, spend more time being a dad and be able to focus on the things that he really loves. So that part's bringing him joy too. So I just wanted to let you know that his mental health, by all accounts, is good. He's ready to take on the challenge to get back on the floor. And in the meantime, he's excited to be able to just focus on being a dad, which is cool. In other news, I reached out to him to see how he was doing. But for those of you who don't know, I wanted to share, since he's such a good friend of the show. But our good buddy, Brian Noe, he put up a post, and he said, I had some sort of a medical issue today. And this is a couple of days ago, possibly a stroke. I'm doing fairly well now in ICU. My speech is slurred. Some will say I've never sounded better, LOL. Enjoyed watching some fine hoops tonight, though. These hiccups are haters. I want to bet with Jokic. Gotta love me. So I reached out to him and said, hey, how you doing? He said he was okay. And he's waiting. He's getting some tests and waiting for the results to find out what the latest is. But that's the deal with Brian Noe. So please pray for Brian Noe right now, who's dealing with some issues. He's down in Las Vegas, and he's down there with his lady, but he doesn't have any family down there. So it's pretty much just the two of them. And you know how it is when you get older and you start dealing with some health issues and stuff, that can be kind of scary. But I'll continue to check in And when I get more details on his status, once he gets back to me, I'll keep you guys updated. But that's the latest with Brian Noah. So Brian Noah is dealing with some stuff right now, potential stroke. Dame, by all accounts, is in a good space mentally, and he's excited about being able to spend more time with his kids. And Steph Curry's got perspective now after being in the league for a number of years and realizes that there are no guarantees. Now, coming up on Monday, this is pretty exciting. It's the NBA Draft Lottery. For those of you who aren't as familiar with the process, I'll keep this very simple. This is where the NBA uses the ping pong balls to determine where each of the teams in the lottery will be selecting in the upcoming NBA draft on June 25th. And it's going to be at 4 o'clock on ESPN. Now, the Trailblazers have done something pretty cool. They've set up 3 separate watch parties across the area where you can hang out with Trailblazer fans and wait and see where the ping pong balls drop for Portland. And it's all part of the Rip City Bar Network. So you've got 3 locations, and they're going to have giveaways, Rip City swag, a chance for fans to enter to win tickets to opening night next season, and you can have a taste of Moda Center during the offseason, which is nice. Meet and greet with Blazer dancers. Obviously, you can grab maybe a beverage and something to eat. And then for these locations, keep an eye out for the neon Rip City Runs Deep sign in the window. That's the news signal to identify a Rip City bar that's a part of the network. It's presented by Michelob Ultra. So the 3 locations at 4 o'clock on Monday, May 12th. If you're in Beaverton, it's the Pit Stops Bar and Grill at 10245 Southwest Canyon Road in Beaverton. If you're in Portland, 928 Southeast 9th Avenue, the Rogue East Side Pub. Or if you're on my side of the river up in the Couve, 115 East 7th Street, which is Penalties Sports Bar. So there you have it, 3 locations. In Beaverton at Pit Stop Sports Bar and Grill, in Portland at Rogue East Side Pub, or in Vancouver at Penalties Sports Bar. And they'll have meet and greet with the Blazer dancers. They'll have swag. They'll have a chance to enter to win tickets for opening night. And then we can sit back and pray. And look, that's all I can ask of you. Whatever you can do to pray and ask for the Lord to give us a kind little act on Monday would be great. Right now, the Trailblazers, I'll give you the rundown. They've got a 3.7% chance to land the top pick in the draft, which would be Cooper Flagg. So Utah, Washington, Charlotte, the top 3, they all have a 14% chance at number 1, a 52.1% chance at the top 4. Portland sits at 10th with a 3.7% chance at number 1 and a 16.9% chance to jump into the top 4. The reason why the top 4 is so good is because your top 4 players in the draft, Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, who are both from Rutgers, and VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. So if you get into the top 4, you're going to have a chance to get a difference maker that can come in and blend in right away with this young core that the Trailblazers have that we're excited about. So that is what's going on. That's the situation. Monday, 4 o'clock, it kicks off on ESPN, and the Trailblazers has set up those 3 locations. In Beaverton at the Pit Stop Sports Bar and Grill, in Portland at the Rogue East Side Pub, and then in Vancouver at the Penalty Sports Pub. So there you have it. That's everything you need to know in terms of what's going down. So we will wait and see if the Blazers can experience a little bit of magic coming up on Monday. All right, Knicks and Celtics. What a wild series. I cannot believe the Knicks won Game 2 and now have a 2-0 lead. And after the game, I want you to hear from a couple of different people. But Jalen Brunson had a chance to talk. He talked about being up 2-0 and also talked about Karl Anthony Towns.
How big is for you guys to go back home with a 2-0 lead? And what can you tell me about Karl Towns' performance?
I mean, it's very important. Going home, realizing the opportunity we have, we just got to make sure we're still locked in. Nowhere close to being done. Just keep making sure our mindset is the same. And I mean, Kat, just the way he started out the game, it was great for us, and just the way he's been throughout the entire season, and he's been one of the best teammates we have, and the way he gives us energy and the way he goes and gets rebounds and what he does, that's doesn't go unnoticed, and it's just the way he's been.
All right, there's Jalen Brunson. You know, I really like the way he handles his business. I mean, I cannot understate this enough. Like, he has been so reliable and dependable in the clutch. He is a big-time shot maker and has the ability to get to his spots and get shots off from all angles. I mean, the Knicks know if they're in a close game, they got a chance because he is so good. And Tom Thibodeau talked about Brunson, the old Brunson burner, after the game.
I think one of the things I really respect about him is his demeanor. You know, he just keeps marching forward, and he doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, but he's a great competitor. And so just find ways to help us win. And if your shot's not dropping, play great defense, move without the ball, push the ball up the floor. I thought we got some fast break baskets in the second half. I thought that helped us a lot as well.
Yeah, there's no question. I think the fast break points, you know, when they got down big, the Knicks continued to look for opportunities to push the pace. And by doing that and continuing to play their game, they quickly got themselves back into it. I like that approach and mentality. And finally, you know, Thibodeau talked about the, you know, that whole mentality of not giving up.
And that's the playoffs. You got to keep fighting. Every possession matters. And you got to play all 48 minutes. And so we started slowly, got in a big hole, dug our way out, and then guys made a lot of tough plays. They were at their best when their best was needed down the stretch.
Yeah, don't get too excited, Coach. That's Tom Thibodeau, no nonsense type of guy. But the Knicks, very tough. And they did, man. They continued to play their game even when they got down big early. And because they did that and they have an identity and they kept that same mentality of attack, they created opportunities and got back in the game quickly. Let's go out to the phone. Steve here in Portland. Steve, appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Yes, you're up, Steve. What's up? Fire away. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am. It's not Steve. It's D. D from Portland.
All right.
Hello?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was listening over the radio, and I heard you talking about No and Lillard and the stuff that they're going through. Godfather, I haven't heard from him in a while. Is he all right? Everything okay with him?
Yeah, the Godfather is good. I just talked to him on the phone yesterday.
Good, because I miss him being on the show. I mean, I guess he's no longer on the show, but I always wish him as best because with you two together, it was good radio. On other topic, Blazers, we got to get that pick, man. I think to add another, solid piece to this core, that's how we'll be able to, raise in the ranks.
Oh, it'd be huge. Cooper Flagg would be a game changer for us. And, I mean, that's the way the lottery works. If you get some good fortune, if Cooper Flagg lands in Portland, it changes everything. Everything. Everything that you could possibly imagine. Hey, Shaq, are you good over there? So I can understand how you might get a name wrong, but D and Steve don't sound anything alike.
Anytime someone calls in, I repeat their name 2 or 3 times. He never corrected me. So that's all I can go on. I kept saying his name, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got it right. But it was a little muffled. His phone he had a Bluetooth issue. He switched it right before he spoke to you.
Oh, Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites.
So he had a muffled Bluetooth, but he turned it off so he could sound perfect while talking to you on the radio.
All right. Yeah, Brian Noe dealing with some health issues right now. He's down in Las Vegas. He's getting tests right now, so we don't know exactly what's going on. Could be a stroke, but scary nonetheless. So I'll keep you posted once I get an update from Noe on exactly what's taking place. Elsewhere, Jaylen Brown, along with Jason Tatum, again, those two guys combined to go 1 of 9 for a combined 4 points in the fourth quarter last night. And those are your 2 star players, especially Tatum, who's had a career year. Like, I don't even know how that's possible. But Jaylen Brown, after the game, talking about not being able to make plays.
We got to make plays. We just didn't make plays tonight. And that was the story of the game. Our defense did enough. We got some great open looks, we got to convert those.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt. I think, and again, I talked to a couple of guys earlier in the week. With the 3-point shooting, Boston right now just 25% through the first 2 games from downtown. The reason why they continue to shoot threes is, one, that's their identity, even though they shot 20 fewer threes in game 2. But the analytics, the nerds that come up with these formulas, the idea behind the nerds is that if you just continue to shoot threes based on variance, even if you have a bad shooting night or back-to-back games where you don't shoot the 3-ball well, they believe those numbers are going to bounce back and you go right back to your usual percentage, which is probably true. But the idea is that if you just get up more attempts from downtown than your opponent, that you're probably going to win the game because you're going to make more threes, which will put you in a position to win the game. But the Celtics have struggled through the first 2 games. In fact, the Knicks were +6 from beyond the arc in game number 1, and they were just -3 in game number 2. And that's a line, the 3-point line, that you would have thought would be dominated by Boston based on their 3-point shooting going into the series. But that has not been the case thus far. But the reality is that a couple of different things. One, Jason Tatum, if he wants to be considered, a top 5 guy, he's got to add something else to his game, because it's pretty clear that when his jump shot's not going and he's not making the shots, especially from 3, he's just a normal player. There's nothing special about it, because when he's working, off the bounce against elite defenders, some of the better defenders in the NBA, and you got some of those in this series with Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, his first step is not quick enough to be able to get the separation needed to get right at the rack. And so what happens is he's not quick enough to work off the bounce, so he can't get to the rim easily because he's facing elite defenders. He's not making the jump shots, but he doesn't have that go-to move, in the mid-range. He doesn't have that play, that shot that he can lean on to get him easy buckets. And most star players, they've got that one go-to situation where they know they can get a bucket. And maybe for Tatum, it's to develop that, maybe a mid-range shot between 10 and 15 feet where he gets to his spot and he knows he can lean on that when the jump shot's not going from downtown. And every star has had that go-to move that's pretty much Mr. Reliable. Part of the reason that Jokic is so deadly is that once he gets inside a certain, range within the rim, he's almost unstoppable because he shoots such a high percentage. But at least if you're going to be a team that follows the nerds and goes with the analytics, then you've got to find different mechanisms within your offense to get different looks, easier buckets, so you're not always relying upon the 3. Use your actions to get Tatum or Brown in a position to where you can get them easier looks instead of just jacking up the 3. But that's what we're seeing now with the nerds taking over sports. It's unfortunate. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive. Michael Holton will stop by at 5:20 for a little Holton on Hoops, and he'll join me in studio here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. You know, it's pretty funny. Scott Foster made his return last night. He was part of the call for the Thunder and Nuggets game number 2. And he's considered like the company man, right? None of us here in Portland like Scott Foster, known as Satan Foster. But Nikola Jokic was asked about Foster and Russell Westbrook and the whole situation last night.
You obviously had a lot to say to Scott Foster after that 5th foul.
I was just asking. I didn't say nothing. I think I just said I can ask questions.
And I think Russ got a technical earlier in the game too. I think he came over. It looked like he was defending you sort of after Jalen Williams.
Yeah, of
got
course. I
into
mean,
a
the Russ is a great teammate. He's always going to be there, and it's always a reaction, you know. So he reacted, and he got a technical. Is it how to say? Did he deserve it or not? That's not my to talk.
In other words, Nikola Jokic being very smart because he does not want to be fined and lose money. What he was trying to say was, look, Scott Foster's a douchebag, and because of him, we were even more frustrated. But he can't say that. But that's what we all know Scott Foster to be. He's also the company man. So basically, the story on Foster, or at least what the majority of NBA fans think about Foster, is that if the NBA has interest in a certain team getting to a certain point, they bring in Foster to do what is needed. The company guy, Satan Foster. So he's had issues here in Portland for years. One of the more least liked referees amongst the fans across the NBA. But according to what I've been told, he always gets high marks. So there you have it. But I don't even know. Not that Jokic cares. They didn't even show up for that game. How do you give up an NBA record 87 points in the first half? You do so by not showing up and not even giving an effort. Look, I understand that you're happy you got the split, but can you give me something? You give up 87? You got whacked by 43? Oh, my goodness. But, again, that was an example of Oklahoma City's talent level and how dominant they've been throughout the course of the year. If you don't show up ready to go against that team and they got it going, you're in big trouble. So I expect a much better effort from Denver tomorrow night back home. But they've got to really play well, and they need multiple guys to step up to get the job done. But that is a tough situation. But what a game that's going to be. Because, again, with Denver getting the big shot from Aaron Gordon, the door's open for them to win that series. They got a chance now. And they go home. And they got a chance to take control, just like the Knicks. The Knicks have a golden opportunity right now. Even if they just get one of the games at home now, they're up 3-1, and Boston's in a situation where they got to win 3 straight to take the series. So I'm curious to see, one, how the Nuggets will respond after getting worked by 43 in Game 2. And then I want to see how the Knicks respond to the pressure they're going to face in Game 3. Because the Celtics are going to pull out all the stops. They know they can't go down 0-3. If they do, they're done. Because no team in the NBA has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. So whatever the Celtics have, you're going to get the best of them on Saturday afternoon. And the question is, can the Knicks up their game? You know, the Knicks are up 2-0. They could easily be down 2-0, but they have back-to-back wins against Boston, and they haven't played their best basketball. So people forget that. All the focus is on the Celtics because they're the favorite and the defending champs. But the reality is New York could play better. I mean, if they were playing their best basketball, they wouldn't be down by 20 points in each of the last 2 games. They were just fortunate enough to do whatever it took and got in a position to win the games. And they did. They closed out. And Jalen Brunson right now is a better late-game player than Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. He is reliable. He's relentless, and he's so difficult to stop. I guess what impresses me the most is that the Celtics have a slew of guys that throw at Brunson. A ton of guys, including Drew Holiday and Derek White and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They got linked everywhere, and they got great defenders everywhere, and yet he's still getting off. Drew Holiday is a bad boy, and Brunson was still getting to his spots and making shots against him. I don't know. Jalen Brunson's a stud. I think we all appreciate the smaller guy on the floor just with a gutsy performance, grinding their way through and getting it done. Man, he's tough. He is super tough. Really like it. Really like watching him operate. The Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla talked about the hole they're in, being down 2-0.
I mean, you're down 2-0 heading on the road, so you have an understanding of your environment, what you're up against. There's also obviously a lot of things that we're doing well, but then there's things that we need to be extremely better at in those situations. So, obviously you have an understanding of the environment. You're down 0-2, so we got to get on the road and we got to find a way to win.
I mean, what's more likely, that the Knicks sweep the Celtics, or that Boston wins both games and it goes back to Boston tied up at 2? Can the Knicks win one of these next 2 games at home? What's going to happen when Boston does start hitting threes? I guess what I'm trying to wonder is, are Brown and Tatum going to continue to struggle from the field? Or are they going to start making shots? Will the Celtics start making threes? They've been a better road team throughout the entire season than they have been at home. But that's the formula I'm trying to figure out. And because if Brown and Tatum don't start shooting the ball better in Game 3 on Saturday, they're done. So you would expect the percentages to come back around, but credit to the Knicks, playing, they're giving everything they got to Coach Thibodeau right now. But those numbers from Brown and Tatum in game number 2 were crazy. For the game, Jaylen Brown, 8 of 23. He was 2 of 7 from downtown. And Jason Tatum, 5 of 19. 1 of 5 from 3. The two combined to go 3 of 12 from beyond the arc. And it combined 13 of 42 from the field. And those are your 2 best players. So you like we've learned in the playoffs, you've got to get more from your stars, because those are the guys who get the bulk of the shots. Those are the ones you have to lean on. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. If you're on hold, I'll get to your calls. Celeste Trapp is going to join me in studio coming up at 4:20. And then Michael Holton stopping by for a little Holton on Hoops at 5:20. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. The weather outside is quite nice, isn't it? And we got one game tonight, Warriors, Timberwolves. Game 2, no Steph, and Minnesota favored by 10.5. It's Chad Doing, Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, what's going on? It's now 4 o'clock. The Knicks, with a major surprise, they take a 2-0 lead on the Celtics after another win in Boston. Game 3 is going to be back in New York on Saturday. Tip-off on ABC at 12:30. Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla on facing that 2-0 deficit.
I mean, you're down 2-0 heading on the road, so you have an understanding of your environment, what you're up against. There's also obviously a lot of things that we're doing well, but then there's things that we need to be extremely better at in those situations. So, obviously you have an understanding of the environment. You're down 0-2, so we got to get on the road and we got to find a way to win.
The Thunder score an NBA record for points in the first half with 87, and they rout the Nuggets by 43. They even up that series at 1. Game 3 tomorrow night from the Mile High City. 1 game tonight, Warriors and Wolves game 2 from Target Center. Minnesota favored by 10.5 after losing game 1. No Steph Curry. He's out with the strained hamstring. Michael Holton will stop by in studio for Holton on Hoops at 5:20. All right, Celeste Trapp going to be in studio for What Women Want. We're going to talk about some aging tips today, so she'll stop by here in 20 minutes. Michael Holton, former Trailblazer, current radio and television analyst, is in studio at 5:20 for Holton on Hoops. We'll get his thoughts on what we're seeing in the playoffs right now, and I'll talk to him about the three-point shooting with Boston. Should they alter their identity and look to do something different than continue to shoot threes? I mean, after all, they did win a championship last year with the same formula. So we'll get Mike Holden's take on that. You want to reach out to me, you'll find me on social at Chad and Rip City. You can call the show at 503-248-0620. I'm going to go to the phones here in just a moment. Monday's a big day here in Rip City because the NBA Draft Lottery is at 4 o'clock. It's going to be on ESPN. And the Trailblazers have put together 3 separate watch parties across the area as part of their Rip City Bar Network. And it's going to be pretty awesome because it will give you a Moda Center feel for an off-season experience. The draft will be on the 25th. The lottery on Monday is to determine, with ping pong balls, where the teams will be selecting in round number 1. And, of course, the grand prize in this year's lottery is Cooper Flag. The Trailblazers have a 16.9% chance to jump into the top 4. They have a 3.7% chance to jump into the top spot and have an opportunity to draft Cooper Flag. So you're going to have, at each location, giveaways. They'll have Rip City swag, a chance to enter to win tickets to the opening night game next season. They'll have Blazer dancers on hand for a little meet and greet. And, of course, you can enjoy some food and beverages as you're checking out the draft lottery. And look for the Rip City Runs Deep sign in the window, a neon sign which identifies the Rip City Bar Network. The 3 locations for Monday, again, it starts at 4 on ESPN. If you're in Beaverton, the Pit Stop Sports Bar and Grill, 10245 Southwest Canyon Road, Rogue Eastside Pub, 928 Southeast 9th Avenue in Portland, or Penalty Sports Pub in Vancouver at 115 East 7th Street. You can get more information at trailblazers.com/bar network. So the draft lottery on Monday, 4 o'clock, ESPN. And we're all praying that the Blazers can jump to number 1 and have access to Cooper Flag, which would instantly transform the franchise into must-see television. It would be unbelievable. And I will continue to hold out hope until it is over. Let's go out. I haven't talked to this guy in a long time, my good friend, Don in Wilsonville. Don, long time no chat, man. How are you and what's on your mind?
I'm glad you're doing well, Chad, and I hope that you're having a good year so far. I wanted to give you a take on 3 things. In sports, whether it be baseball, basketball, or hockey, the star player often plays really good in the regular season, but somehow they just can't get it together in the postseason. We see it in baseball all the time last year with the Yankees. And I think it's very good for the New York Knicks to win the series. It'll get some excitement for New York since the days of Ewing and John Starks. And then on the Blazer thing, if we do get the number one pick, that would be 3 times in the history that we got the number one. And let's hope we don't screw up this one if we do, and go for him. And then what is the chances that Dame never playing with the Bucks again and opting out and wanting to come back to Portland? Would we or should we accept him back?
Well, that's a good question, and I am having a good year so far, Donnie. I appreciate that. It's good to hear your voice, and I'm glad you're well. I can't remember how many years. Let me pull up Dame's contract right now. First off, in the NBA, you can't opt out of a contract because he's still going to be on the books. So you can't opt out of a contract, and he wouldn't do that because he stands to make a ton of money. So right now for Dame, he is on the books. Let's see here, 2025, 26 for $54 million, and on the books for a player option after the 26-27 season. So he's not going to opt out. So he's going to be on the books for this year, and he's not going to opt out in that next year, I wouldn't think. He could opt out after this upcoming season, Donnie. All I can say is that, I would be open to Dame coming back to play another year to finish out his career in a Trailblazer uniform. Kind of like a King Griffey Jr. type of thing up in Seattle. But I find it hard to believe that the GM that traded him away would bring him back. I guess we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Plus, roster space is so valuable. If you've got a young team with a young core, which the Blazers have, would you want to spend a roster spot on an aging guy at the end of his career coming off an Achilles injury? I guess the first things first, as I mentioned earlier, I ran into one of Dame's family members this morning, and we had a conversation. And my biggest concern was just his mental state of mind. And he's in a good spot. He understands he's got a lot of work in front of him to get back on the court, but he's excited about the opportunity to spend more time with his kids over the next several months as he's rehabbing. So it's going to give him a chance to be a dad, which is really going to help with his psyche. And then he's just got to embrace the work to get himself back on the floor. And then, with the Achilles injury, you just don't know how your body's going to respond, how you're going to be able to move after the procedure, and, what type of Dame he'll be when he comes back. So we'll have to wait and see. But the Bucks are in a tough spot right now because Dame's going to be on the books for like $50 million next year, and they're not going to be able to use him because he's not going to come back. I would highly doubt he'll be back on the floor next year. This is likely going to be a one-year rehab, and he won't be back until the following season. And then at that stage, what's he going to have left? I just wanted him to go through the process to battle and get himself back on the floor so that when he does walk away from the game, he can do it on his terms and not have an injury dictate that, because that's tough. So that's where they're at. But he's going to be on under contract for the upcoming season. He's got a player option the following year, and he'll be unrestricted in 27-28. So there you have it. That's the latest with Dame. And he signed that latest deal, 4 years, $176 million. That's big-time cash. But he got that Supermax extension with Portland, so he's well taken care of. Well taken care of. All right. Celeste Trapp going to be in studio here in a few minutes. We'll talk with her. Looking forward to that. Michael Holton on Hoops, coming up at 5:20. And we got the draft lottery on Monday, which is at 4 o'clock. If you want to reach out and talk to me, you can do so at 503-248-0620. You can also find me on social at Chad and Rip City. And just a reminder to some of you guys out there, Sunday is Mother's Day. And I only say that because I forget or have a tendency to forget important dates. And I just want to make sure you guys are well taken care of and that you take care of your moms and don't screw anything up. It's very simple. And the weather looks like it's going to be okay. It's not going to be too bad. Saturday looks nice. Tomorrow's going to be good. Sunday, maybe a little bit of rain later in the day. But there's going to be potential rain on Monday and Tuesday. But, this rain stretch is going to be short-lived before we're back to the sunshine. and we've had a good stretch of weather. But the big event, of course, Sunday is Mother's Day. But these basketball games that we're going to have over the next few nights are going to be fascinating. These playoffs have been good. Not going to lie. Really entertaining basketball, high-level play. That's part of what makes Jalen Brunson so great right now. And the reason why I'm so excited about watching him play, like in the playoffs, these crunch time, minutes, at the end of the game, last 5 minutes of a game, like these teams are playing so hard. And again, they've gone through a full game plan and scouting report to get ready for their opponent. So you're facing guys at their best, fully equipped to defend you. And the Celtics have a slew of guys who can defend and put pressure on Jalen Brunson, and yet he's still getting it done. Still getting it done, getting to his spots, making big shots, and continuing to carry his Knicks. It's remarkable to watch him operate. He's been big time. Like, if I played with him, I would have confidence that Brunson's going to get it done because he almost always does. And he was big late in that game yesterday. It's really awesome to watch him operate. So tough. And the Celtics have so many guys. Drew Holiday was all over him, and he's still finding a way to score. But in the final quarter, Brunson, 3 of 6, 9 points, 1 of 4 from downtown. He was a plus 15. And then Mikal Bridges was just awesome. 14 points on 6 of 10 shooting in the fourth quarter alone. The Knicks connected on 50% of their shots in the fourth. And the majority of those coming from inside the three-point line. So I'm just impressed with Jalen Brunson. Like, I thought he would struggle in this series against Boston. I thought the physicality and the versatility of their lineups and the different guys they could throw at him would put him in a tough spot. But yet he continues to find ways to overcome. And he did it once again last night. He's an impressive player. Like, he did not have a great Jalen Brunson type of night, but he was big late in the game when they needed him to be. Again, that's what star players do. And right now, the star players for the Knicks are out-dueling Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Sometimes it's like, hey, who are your guys? You gotta lean in on your guys. The Warriors, what have they done so far in the postseason? They lean on Dre, Steph, and Jimmy. And those guys have performed. And unfortunately for them, they're not going to have Steph Curry. I'm anxious to see how they play tonight. Minnesota's in a must-win situation, down 1-0. They're playing at home. And the Warriors now, I'm wondering with a couple of days of preparation how some of those role players will play. And also I'm wondering if they can get a better contribution from Jonathan Kuminga, who will probably play better on the floor without Steph Curry. But Steve Kerr's willingness to play guys through the regular season, it pays off in moments like this when you got an injury and you got to lean on somebody. All right, when we come back, Celeste Trapp in studio and then Michael Holton in studio at 5:20. I appreciate your time. And don't forget to pray for Brian Noe, who is in the hospital right now down in Vegas. They don't know exactly what's going on, but it could be a possible stroke. And I reached out to him. He says he's doing okay, but he's in recovery right now, but still uncertain exactly what took place. So as I get details, I'll share that with you because Brian Noe, Bino, is a good dude, and we care about him a great deal. All right, we'll keep things rolling. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Toyota and iHeartRadio need your help filling the truck with canned and non-perishable foods to benefit the Oregon Food Bank. Bring your donations and look. All right, just a minor change in plan here with the program. Celeste reached out to me. She was following her navigation but put in the wrong address. And so her ETA has been pushed back to 4:29. So I'm going to do about the next 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll take a break, and then Celeste will join me for the rest of the hour. And then Michael Holton's going to be in studio at 5:20. So Celeste Trapp coming up here in about 10 minutes or so, and then Michael Holton in studio at 5:20. And if you want to reach out and join me, you can do so at 503-248-0620. You can also find me on social at Chad and Rip City. Let's check in with Tom Brady, who was asked about, advice that he gave to Shedeur Sanders, who dropped to the 5th round in the NFL draft, selected by the Cleveland Browns.
Elephant in the room, Shedeur Sanders. What happened, Tom? Why did he go so late in the draft?
It's a good question. I wasn't a part of any evaluation process or
Skip Bayless says otherwise.
No. Well, everyone's got that's the problem with media is everyone can just say whatever they want. I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like whatever happens, wherever you go, that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah.
So who could speak on it better than me? Like what that really means. Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances. Go take advantage of it.
Is that not great advice or what? And that's from the GOAT, Tom Brady. I absolutely love that. That Tom Brady, now to think that maybe he didn't have input on quarterbacks, in the draft with the Raiders, like I'm not sure I buy that completely. I mean, he's smart enough to be able to look at a guy and give some input, but what a great resource. Go to Tom Brady. He was drafted 199. There were many teams who passed over on him many times over. They didn't want him. He was almost Mr. Irrelevant, and then he turns out to be an incredible quarterback. So I think the point is pretty obvious. These scouts, these teams, they go through their evaluations. They're looking for certain measurables. They have their take, but it doesn't mean they're right. And I love that. Day 2 is what matters much more than the draft. How do you show up? What type of work are you going to put in? And can you figure out the NFL game and become a playmaker? And the reality is for Shedeur, just like any other quarterback that's drafted, if you show up, look at Brock Purdy. He was Mr. Irrelevant. And now he's on the verge of signing a lucrative deal with the 49ers. The truth is, if you show up in camp and you prove that you can play, they're going to find a way to get you on the field. That's how it works. Kurt Warner's a Hall of Famer and a Super Bowl champion, and even Kurt had a hard time finding a team. Now, how did someone miss that in the evaluation process? It's pretty clear that Kurt Warner is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen, and yet no one wanted him. And he had to fight, scratch, and claw to get an opportunity. It worked out okay for him. The San Diego Chargers passed on Drew Brees and went for Phillip Rivers. I mean, there's a lot of situations like that. There are some guys who are surefire studs, like John Elway, Andrew Luck. But there's a lot of guys that some people don't want. Steve Young talks about it all the time. No one wanted him back in the day because he was a left-handed quarterback. And teams weren't used to having left-handed quarterbacks because you got to set up your protection differently. The ball comes out of his hand differently. So he had to prove himself as well. Just because someone has you, slotted in the 5th round or the 2nd round, it really doesn't matter. You may not get the initial cash that a guy selected at number 1 is going to get, but Cam Ward's in the same boat. Yeah, he got selected number 1 overall, and he's going to get plenty of chances to prove he's the guy, but if he shows up on day 2, like Tom Brady said, and doesn't get the job done, he's going to have issues. So I like that, man. Tom Brady's pretty cool. And I love that, too, where he's like, look, Skip Bayless. Anyone can say whatever the bleep they want in the media.
Elephant in the room, Shedeur Sanders. What happened, Tom? Why did he go so late in the draft?
It's a good question. I wasn't a part of any evaluation process or
Skip Bayless says otherwise.
No. Well, everyone's got that's the problem with media is everyone can just say whatever they want. I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like whatever happens, wherever you go, that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah.
So who could speak on it better than me, like what that really means? Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances. Go take advantage of it.
That's Tom Brady. Frankly, if I'm Shador, I'm going to take Tom Brady's advice more than somebody else. And that's what Tom Brady did. He showed up. And then I remember in the Dynasty show on the Patriots, he told one of his teammates, once he got the job, once Drew went down, he's like, I'm not giving this back up. And, like I've told you before about Shador, I think he's great. And I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. And, I think it's weird how these things work out, but sometimes falling's not a bad idea because you wind up in a better spot. The truth is he's going to Cleveland. Now, the bad part is he has to go to Cleveland, the armpit of America, where they set their own lakes on fire. That's not good. And the Browns franchise, because of the Haslam family, not so good. GM and coach, very good. Ownership, very bad. Fan base is great. But the Browns have been a disaster for an extended period of time. They have Baker Mayfield. And that's another good example. Baker Mayfield wasn't good enough for the Browns, and yet once he got healthy again, he's sure tearing it up for the Bucs. The Browns are dumb. But they did take Shador. Now, the good news is for him, his competition in camp is the aged Joe Flacco. And who else they got? Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett. I think he's going to do okay there. That's his competition. I would predict that by Thanksgiving, Shador Sanders will be starting for the Browns. Because I know one thing, he's a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. And I'm not hating on Dylan Gabriel. I love Dylan Gabriel. Loved him at Oklahoma. And I told Duck fans, like, you don't know what you're getting right now because you just lost Bo Nix, but Dylan Gabriel is a stud. And it turns out that he was a stud. I knew he was going to be a stud because I saw him at Oklahoma for 2 years. He was great. Great teammate, great leader, works his tail off. But the problem is on the NFL level, when you're a smaller guy without elite athleticism and he's small, he's going to have a hard time, getting the ball over the top of the line because those linemen are, it's hard when you're sitting at 5'10", 5'11", and you got linemen that are 6'6" and 6'7". That's problematic. And he doesn't have the elite athleticism of a guy like Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's able to make it work because he's an elite athlete. But that's not Dylan Gabriel. So I think Shador's a better quarterback. And Joe Flacco is, well, he's just old. And then Kenny Pickett's not very good. So, yeah, it's a pretty good situation. But I like that Tom Brady, what a great resource. And I like it when the stars, now that it's all said and done, I like that Tom Brady's willing to communicate and work with some of the younger guys. And one of Brady's big things, and this is where I think guys like Brady can be very helpful, he is frustrated with the fact that you have guys coming into the NFL at the quarterback position who aren't prepared to play the NFL game because they haven't been taught the proper mechanics, how to read a defense, how to understand certain concepts, like the process in preparing these guys for the NFL level. It's tough. And so Tom Brady's a big proponent of helping guys. And so if you got a resource like that, take advantage of it. I know that Bo Nix has got guys like that in Denver where, Elway and both Peyton Manning have said, hey, anytime you got questions or need anything, we're here to help. And I think that's pretty sweet. The big prize next year in the draft, of course, will be Arch Manning. And I like his makeup and what he's about. And we'll see what he does at Texas this year. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can reach out and find me on social media at Chad and Rip City. Don't forget on Monday, we've got the NBA Draft Lottery, which starts at 4 o'clock on ESPN. 4 o'clock on ESPN. The Trailblazers have 3 different locations set up for a watch party. They'll have Rip City swag, meet and greets with the Blazer dancers. You can enter to win tickets for the opening night game next season and hang out and enjoy Blazer fans as Portland goes for the top spot with Cooper Flag, presented by Michelob Ultra. The Pit Stop Sports Bar and Grill in Beaverton at 10245 Southwest Canyon Road. 928 Southeast 9th Avenue in Portland at the Rogue Eastside Pub, or 115 East 7th Street in the Couve, Penalties Sports Bar. More information at trailblazers.com/bar network. All right, when we come back, we'll be joined by Celeste Trapp, What Women Want, and we'll focus in on some aging tips today. And then Michael Holton going to be by at 5:20. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the crazy world of navigation. She has found her way inside the studio. Celeste Trapp from Harem is with me once again for What Women Want. You made it.
I did. I am so sorry. We got to use our brain sometimes and not trust these GPS devices.
I know.
But
I know.
I just do it everywhere I go. I've lived here almost my whole life. Everywhere I go, I'm always like, I got to put in the GPS. But it is nice with traffic because it's a traffic time.
Yeah.
And it tells you, no, this is a better route because I live on the hill, so I can go 5 different ways to get here. So I always like to know what's the best route.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you just got to use your head.
One thing I love about having lived in an area so long is that you have local knowledge, right? So I kind of know a lot of the surface streets or ways to navigate through busy spots or traffic. But one thing that, like Waze has done or navigation's done for me is that I'm learning new roads or different directions I would not have taken. And so I'm learning new access roads that I was unaware of before.
Yeah.
And I've been out here for forever.
It's kind of funny sometimes where they do take you because going to my friend's house, it'll take me on this back road with like big rivet and ditches. And it's like, why did you pick that road?
Yeah.
It's very random how it gets.
I think what they're programmed to do, at least what I've noticed with Waze, which I enjoy using, is they're going to find that whatever pathway is the quickest to get you to your route, that's where it's going to take you to.
No matter how many
sometimes
potholes.
I'm like, I've never been down this road. Is this right? And then I doubt it, and it usually is right.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times, too, now, it's like, it is when you drive for a long period of time, I'll get going, I'm not paying attention, and before I know it, I've missed a turn or done this, or I'm like,
Well,
oh,
that's
screwed
what I
up.
did today because it took me on this other way, and then I had to take this one little turn off, and I missed it, and then it was like, now it's going to be stuck in this long traffic to get over the bridge, and so anyway.
All right.
I made it.
Well,
Sorry to keep you waiting.
We got good topics to talk about today, Celeste. In fact, I'm entering into this realm myself, and I just asked you, and you confirmed that you're in a different stage in your life now too. But, different ways that you can have that guys can continue to look younger. And I'm going to be 50 in August, and I've got gray hair coming in. I've got gray whiskers coming in. It doesn't really bother me. In fact, it all occurred to me probably a couple of years ago where I was in the bathroom shaving and the light was hitting me in the right direction. And I realized like, whoa, I'm not the same guy that I used to be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I've never really thought about it, but I don't know what the right answer is. If you should look to, do things to change hair color or do this or do that. I mean, the biggest thing I worry about is just my physical health, just keeping myself active and healthy so I can have movement. But I mean, what's your approach when it comes to aging as we enter into a different phase in our life?
Right. It's here. We're going to face it. Everyone is, whether we like it or not. But how we go about it is up to us.
Yeah.
And we have so many more options now and so much more knowledge than our ancestors did. So we need to make use of it. But the big one, I think is just self-care. Like you're talking about, you've taken great care of yourself your whole life. You don't look your age at all.
Well, thank you.
So you're welcome. But you've worked at that. And you deserve it, Chad.
Yeah.
But, self-care is the first and foremost foundation to making sure that we age gracefully and that we can live the life we want to live when we're older, but also that we look in the mirror and we're like, hey, I'm doing pretty good for my age, whatever age that is. And so I just want to share some few ideas that people need to be aware of, I think, when it comes to self-care and aging. But one of the biggest things that some people maybe don't realize is the amount that stress impacts their aging.
Mm-hmm.
Were you aware of that?
I am. Yeah, I've done a lot of search on that because I've experienced different levels of stress throughout my life. What concerns me the most is the raised levels of cortisol, which can cause deterioration across the board. So that's my concern. So that's why I've picked up other hobbies and different things to lower my stress levels because I know that cortisol causes all sorts of damage to the body.
So the main thing about increased cortisol, is it depletes your collagen. And really the game right now is collagen.
What is
and
collagen
elastin.
exactly? What does that do for me?
So it's a protein as well as elastin, are proteins. And so what collagen does, it's what gives our skin its structure and its strength, and as well as your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
So we want collagen. What we want to do is we want to figure out the things that we're doing in our life, like having excessive stress, that reduces our collagen. And we also want to think about the things we can do in our life to increase the production of collagen.
Oh, so
that's
collagen
the
is one of
game.
those things that you can increase the production of.
Yes. So you can do that. Like some people are ingesting collagen. There's collagen peptides that people take just for foods that you can eat. So that's really the game at play. So as far as stress goes, thinking about ways to reduce your stress So if you have a stressful job and you don't feel like leaving that job, how do you deal with stress so that you're reducing the amount of cortisol that's created in your body? So having meditation practice. Do you currently meditate?
I pray, but I know that I've talked to it. My workout buddy does different forms of meditation. My current form is to I journal in the mornings, and I find that to be a very good
Yeah.
meditative state.
So meditation is amazing. And for a lot of people, I think it is a practice. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Um, Deep breathing exercises, yoga, all those are great ways to relieve stress. Getting massages, or even we talked about facials the other day. Having services like that where you can just completely relax and melt the stress away, literally. Those are things that are great to do. Also, making sure you're getting quality sleep. And the key word there is quality. You could be lying in your bed for 12 hours and having a really poor sleep quality, and versus maybe being in your bed 6 hours and having a really solid, healthy sleep.
Yeah.
That's going to definitely be helping your body rejuvenate more than just being in bed and having a poor sleep. So investing in like an Aura Ring, or I use my iWatch with an app, and regulating and seeing what is it that you're doing before you go to sleep that gives you a better sleep or a poor sleep. If you're drinking alcohol, maybe using screens too much before you go to bed, or just having a lot of stress in your life, it might be harder to have a good sleep. So if you can't figure out the right concoction before you go to bed, then using sleep aids that might help you get a good solid sleep is definitely going to help.
I've noticed for me, excessive screen time disturbs my sleep patterns. So it's very difficult to limit because I enjoy, you know, watching programs, YouTube or a little television before I go to bed. And so that is tough for me. But I want to ask you about the collagen real quick because I'm not as schooled in that department. Is replenishing collagen, is that done through nutrition, just things that you ingest, or through supplementation, or are there activities that you can do through exercise that can help boost collagen? Are you aware of anything like that?
Yeah. So, I'm not an expert here, but I have read a lot, and it's a topic very important to me, obviously. So
Yes.
I'm trying to learn as much as I can ongoing. But so collagen peptides are things that you can put into your smoothie. So that's an easy thing to do. You can dissolve it into your coffee even. It doesn't really have a flavor. So that's something that you can ingest. You
I
can
know
take
my
collagen.
my mom dissolves it in her coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do collagen tablets as well. Also, having more vitamin C helps you with that collagen, processing that collagen that you're supplementing with. So having more citrus fruits, broccoli has a lot of vitamin C in it.
That's one thing I've done over the last couple of years. I boosted my vitamin C over the recommended dose, which I think is like 2,000 milligrams a day. So I'm taking in about an extra I'm taking about 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C, only to protect my immune system. But also, I've noticed that it's helping with my general mood from day to day by boosting my vitamin C
Is that
level,
right?
which has
Okay.
been very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And vitamin C is one of those supplements that's nice because it's inexpensive and you can always have it to take. And I take it four times throughout the day. So yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
find that to be very helpful.
That's
But I
great.
didn't realize that in combination with the collagen or the
Yeah,
peptides, it helps the
right. It's
process
a great
along.
combination. So having, bone broth, obviously having more protein in your diet.
Hmm.
One thing you could do is take gelatin. It's like there's a brand now, it's escaping me. And it's like a gelatin you might use to thicken something like a Jello. But you
Yeah.
can take that and just add like a flavored stevia, which
Yeah.
is like a natural sweetener. And that will give you a lot of collagen
But
as well.
what does
with
collagen
with
do?
glycine.
So it keeps my skin looking
So what
nice
ends
and
up
tight.
happening as we naturally age, our collagen does not replenish itself as much as it used to.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so your skin starts getting a little saggier.
Oh, saggier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not as strong. And then the elastin, that's going, like if you think of a rubber band, when you have a lot of elasticity in your skin, like a young child's skin, you could pull the skin back and it just bounces right back where it was.
Yeah.
And you do that to an older person, it just hangs there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It drops. So that's the elasticity of the skin. So those are the things we're trying to battle as we age, and just gravity takes its pull literally on our skin. So we can do it naturally by making sure we're doing things that aren't depleting the amount of collagen. And then we can also be doing things so that we're adding more collagen into our system.
That's pretty awesome. I would think that, you mentioned last week your love of playing pickleball and how you picked that up. That's a great activity and it's great for your physical health, but also, I mean, in terms of managing stress, that's a good stress relief too, right?
It is definitely. You're whacking a ball. It's
And
the
your
perfect thing.
And your work is stressful. You're a business owner. I would imagine, I've not been a business owner, but I would imagine that when you're dealing with multiple locations and employees and stuff like, depending on the day,
Mhm.
like your stress levels are never the same. Like you're dealing with different things that are unforeseen day to day. So your stress level can sometimes hit pretty high, I would guess.
Yeah, I tend not to let it. I try to lead a pretty stress-free life, but I do meditate and I do exercise and do breath work, if I'm feeling like I need to do that. Um, but I think the stress itself is so many people are carrying that with them throughout their day, whether it's their relationship stress, their work stress, or just a stress they put on their body by maybe carrying too much weight. That can be body stress.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
So just being aware that what that's doing to the aging process maybe might give people a little bit more incentive to do things to reduce that stress in their life.
All right, another issue with aging, and this is a problem I have. In fact, I'm just going to be honest. It pisses me off because no one warned me about this stuff when I was younger. But the unwanted hair that you encounter as a dude as you get older, like over the last few years, like nose hairs, and then I'm getting hair that grows on my ears.
Yeah, right.
And I tried, for a moment, because the lady that does my facials, Julia, she was going to laser the hair on my ears, right? But it was too painful. Like the
Oh.
ear was too sensitive. So I'm like, eh. So I just shave it. When I shave, I just shave the hair on my the hair on my ears. But I hate that I have unwanted hair. Like I don't like it.
Yeah,
It's
it does
irritating.
happen, especially for men when you age. So that is one way to look younger is, to make sure you don't have hair in unwanted places. So
Yes.
nostrils, inside the ear, and on top of the ear. So there are little nose trimmers at Harem. We would sell it called a Groom Mate. I think they sell it also on Amazon. It's just little.
Is it easy to use?
Yeah, and it's just a little, kind of looks like a bullet, and you just like put it in your crevices there that are growing little hair, and it's kind of
That's
zips
what I
them a
got.
little bit.
I got a little Norelco, same thing.
Yeah.
You just put it in there and just buzz it around. But I have to do that now on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, a lot more upkeep as we get older, right, Chad?
But it's scary. Like if I'm going somewhere and then that deal where you flip down the little visor in your car and you're looking in the
Yeah.
mirror and you're like,
Oh,
and you see a
the
couple of hairs
natural
hanging out of
light.
your nose. You're like, oh my
So bad.
gosh.
And we talked before about the magnified lamp in your bathroom, how important that is, the light,
Yeah.
to see those things.
I don't like those either because
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I'm seeing things like, that's been there? How long has that
Yeah.
been there?
And other people are going to see it if you're out in daylight. Not that they're up in your grill like that, but you can still see from the side profile these little hairs poking out. So yeah, take care of those little hairs. And the other thing with aging, and I think the quickest way that you can look younger is with your hair. So I'm sure you've seen the guys walking around that have like the pitch black dyed hair,
Yeah.
right? And so people are like, oh God, I'm not dyeing my hair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the deal. Those guys are using box color from the salon or from the store. So the problem with that color is that it's permanent color. So when they put it on, it's like one solid color. And it kind of reminds me of a Barbie doll. Not the Ken doll. He was blonde. But there was another Barbie doll. I used to love Barbie dolls that had dark hair. And they just have this like solid black head of hair on,
Yeah.
on this little plastic
Yeah.
head. And that's what these guys walk around with that do this store-bought hair dye.
Yeah, just by looking at it, it's like, that's not real.
And the guy does not want to look like he did his hair, right? And the other thing that happens is when his hair grows out, then he's going to have a demarcation line. So his roots are going to be lighter. And then all around his hairline is going to be lighter than that probably black or dark brown color he put on his hair. So that we don't want to do. But we at Harem and at Chrome, we do a service called gray camouflage. And what that does, it's a demi-permanent color. So it will eventually wash out naturally so that you don't get that demarcation line. But clients just get it done with their haircut. It doesn't take 2 hours. It's like 5 extra minutes onto your service time. So it just, depending on how much you want to cover on your gray, because men can rock the gray salt and pepper look, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it. I'm jealous. Women, we don't do that as well. But when they start to get a lot more gray, it definitely can make you look older. There's just something, even though it can look good, there's something psychological about graying that we
Yeah.
know that we need to. Sorry, you're just. It's time to go. It sounds like.
No.
Okay.
Just hold in because I got
Okay.
a question about this. We'll come back and Celeste Trapp will remain, and then we got Michael Holton coming up at 5:20. But I got a question when we come back specifically about the gray because I'm curious for myself because I'm not there yet, but I will enter into that window, so I want to know what to do and when to do it. So we'll get to that next. Celeste Trapp's in the studio. What women want. You got the Rip City Drive on a Thursday. I appreciate your time here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, what's going on? It's now 5 o'clock. We got the NBA Draft Lottery coming up on Monday. It kicks off at 4 on ESPN, where the ping pong balls will drop, and we'll see where the Trailblazers are going to be picking in the upcoming NBA Draft. The Trailblazers have put together 3 watch parties with Blazer swag, meet and greets with the Blazer dancers. If you're in Beaverton, you can go to the Pit Stop Sports Bar and Grill at 10245 Southwest Canyon Road. In Portland at 928 Southeast 9th Avenue, in the Rogue Eastside Pub, or in Vancouver on my side of the river at 115 East 7th Street at Penalties Sports Pub. From the NBA, we have one game coming up tonight. Game 2, Warriors and Wolves from the Target Center in Minneapolis. Minnesota's favored by 10.5 after the Game 1 loss. No Steph Curry tonight. He's out with a strained hamstring. And no timetable set for his return. It's likely going to be 7 to 10 days. All right, Michael Holton going to stop by at 5:20 for a little Holton on Hoops. We'll talk playoffs with him. My good friend Celeste Trapp from Harem in studio right now, and we're talking about some aging tips and how to we talked about stress and how to do things to relieve your stress. But with the aging tips, we're talking about graying hair, and you mentioned the guys who color the hair themselves, and you can see it from a mile away. I've got friends who have done it, and I'm like, dude, like that, I know what you've done there, right?
Right.
It's so obvious.
It is, and it makes other men think, I don't ever want to do that. I don't want to be
Ever.
that guy.
Yeah, and so when you mention hair color, my initial thought is like, I don't think I'm doing
Right.
that. But the camouflage that you have at Hair M is very interesting to me because I asked you a question like, how do you know, like you're talking about doing things you're comfortable with, like how am I supposed to know? I asked you, I said, how do I know when it's time to use the camouflage? And you made a very good point that if you have a guy, like I know a lot of guys who are gray and they look great, right? And you said if they saw us side by side with the camouflage, meaning you're not going all black, you're just blending out some of the gray to where they have their natural hair color, that if they saw us side by side, they'd be like, whoa, I look even better with less gray.
Right. And men can look great, definitely with gray hair. No
Yeah.
doubt about it. So my answer to you was if somebody's feeling like they're looking a little older than they want,
Yeah.
then maybe that's a time to say, maybe I could tone down some of the gray.
Yes.
But I'm pretty certain that if anyone looked at their picture with a gray camouflage and without, they would say, wow, I really look, 5-10 years younger.
Yeah. Well, as I was told once, every great meal has a little salt and pepper.
That's
There's nothing wrong
You
with that.
know.
So that's great to know. So, and the camouflage, as you mentioned, it naturally washes out over time. So you don't have, as your hair starts to grow, you don't have that hideous line to where people
Right.
know what's going on.
Yeah, you don't have the grow out demarcation line. So it's
And you said it's a quick process.
it's like 5 minutes onto your cut surface. So what's great is that you can decide how much of the grays you want to cover. So if you were completely white, it may not be the right service for you. But if you're like, 60% gray, 30% gray, 10% gray, and you didn't want to be any gray, you can decide how much of the grays you want to have covered. And we use a product that's actually designed for men. It's not a women's color product.
Yeah.
Because men's hair does have different color tones to it. So it is designed to work with men's hair, and you can leave it on based on how much of the gray coverage you want. So if you just want to tone it down a little bit, then that's what you can do. But you're not going to be walking around like that guy that used the box color from the store.
Yeah, where it's completely obvious and it doesn't look natural. So that's my biggest fear is like, whatever I do, I just want to look natural. So it's not like someone's
Right.
like, oh my gosh.
Right.
what'd
And then
do?
you can put some onto your beards because sometimes guys won't really gray on their head. They'll gray more on their beard.
Yeah.
And that can, make them look a little older as well. So you could have it done just to your beard area.
Interesting. Michael Shacker asked a question, and I think a lot of guys wanted this too. Like, do they like facial hair? Is it a turnoff? Is it okay? Like, where do women come out on facial hair and beards?
I personally like facial hair.
Yeah.
I can't speak for all women. I think men, especially men, if they have maybe a weak jawline or maybe they have a double chin, a beard can help, camouflage that.
Yeah.
So I think it can work for a lot of men. I personally am not a fan of like the big Portland beard
Yeah.
look. That's not my thing. But it's in trend. So,
And like anything else, it would men, women, or whatever, it varies from person to person, right? Like I don't want to wear a beard because I just don't like the way it feels. It itches,
yeah, I think it'd be so weird with your eating and everything. I'm always worried about having food and stuff in your beard, but
Well, that's
people
good.
do it. They pull it off.
So what's that product called again? It's just called camouflage?
Gray camo.
Gray
Yeah.
camo.
Yeah, we do it at Hair Am and at Chrome salons. Yeah.
How often do you have to have it done?
You do it with every haircut.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So it's,
And it's a quickie. So after you're
4 to
cut,
6
they
weeks.
just rub it in, and that's that.
And the other benefit to it too, I had a friend who he would do it. He really didn't have much gray hair, but it gave it a little bit of more thickness to his hair. So he liked to do it for that reason. So something to consider. The other thing is a lot of guys, they start to walk around with kind of a dated haircut that makes them look older as well. So when we're looking at ways, how do we make ourselves look older? We have what we talked about, the self-care and the things we can do, like at a med spa clinic, the stress reduction we can do in our lifestyle. But the things you can do just for the aesthetics of your look are the fastest fixes.
Yeah.
So having a more in-trend, in-style haircut, and if you're starting to look like your dad's haircut, it might be time to do that.
Yeah, I
So-
think my dad's had the same hairdo for 50 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that roll with the same do. They don't mix it up at all.
Yeah, well, it's it's easy to kind of get stuck in our ways. So letting a stylist or a barber guide you into a cut that would complement your face and how much hair you have.
And that's a normal thing
would
to
be
ask
great.
a stylist, right? Be like, hey, what do you think? What are some
Yeah.
new trendy ways? What can we do with this thing? And I think that's a normal conversation, right?
Be open to some new ideas and not just the same old haircut. Because, I think for women too, when we get our hair done, it's kind of like, oh, wow, I feel great because it's something new. If I'm just getting the same cut, the same color every time, I'm looking at the same, aging face over and over, the same haircut, you get a different cut. And all of a sudden, you just feel.
How often do you mix it up with your hairstyles? Every time? Or what do you, how do you know when to switch it up?
For a guy?
No, for you.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
When do I know when to switch it up? That's a good question, Chad. I don't really know when I know. I just be like, I'm ready for something different.
No, I'm just,
Shorten the bangs, shorten the hair length. I don't do extensions or anything like that, but a lot of women do that if they want to go longer.
Now, do you have someone specifically that does your hair, or do you just let the girls take turns?
Yeah, I just kind of move around. I don't do it at the hair salons. I go to Chrome because Chrome does men and women.
Yeah.
But I don't go. The stylists at Hair M pretty much just stick to more masculine styles.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to get a pixie cut or something a little shorter, I could go to Hair M stylist.
That's pretty funny. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't. I just I try. I just never want to. I don't want to have the same do all the time. That would drive me crazy.
How often are you changing yours up?
Well, right now I'm keeping it a little bit shorter, but when I style my hair every morning, I just do it a little bit different. But I like it short right now because during the summertime I'm out on the course constantly. I'm active, so I don't want hair.
Right.
I don't want hair to be. I don't want hair to have to manage because I'm always on the go.
Right.
That's kind of how I approach that.
Right.
But
So back to a few things about anti-aging and looking younger. I want to make sure we touch on before we run out of time. So skincare is a big thing.
Mhm.
So we talked a little bit about the importance of SPF, talking about you being out on the golf course, and a lot of guys are using, if they are using it, maybe slapping on the body sunscreen.
yeah.
So instead of doing that, it's great using sunscreen. It's better than nothing. If that's all you have, do that. But getting sunscreen for your face, it should be at least 30 SPF or more.
At least 30 SPF for your face.
Yeah. So back to how do we make ourselves not age faster? So protecting our skin is like the bare minimum. Do that every day. Even if it's not a hot, sunny day, you should be doing that. And then using products. So moisturizers, eye creams, those types of products are going to help your skin look better, as well as using a vitamin C serum. You like vitamin C. Vitamin C is great as a serum on your face, and it helps you with the collagen as well in your body.
Do you think guys are more open to this kind of care in today's world?
Definitely.
Yeah.
We sell some products designed for men. Baxter of California is the line we carry, that has, moisturizer and scrubs and eye cream. So there's products out there just for men because men are buying them. They're
Yes.
realizing that it's not just for women, that men should and do want to fight the aging process as well.
And these are simple, quick things that you can do. Just it
Simple
becomes
fit
a part
things,
of
and
your
it feels
routine.
good 'cause
Yeah.
tight skin, especially you live in a dry climate. I mean, like, but even just in here in our climate, like, I notice a difference that I don't put moisturizer on. I can feel the dryness of my skin, especially if you're using body soap, which is not the best thing to be using on your face. One product that might be sound a little funny is castor oil. You know what castor oil is?
Yeah, it's something my grandma used to have up in
Yeah,
the
and
cupboard
it
when I was
smells
younger.
terrible. But if you do go to YouTube and research it, they're calling it like the nature's Botox because it has properties that Botox and fillers have to help with fine lines and plumping your skin. So that's a really inexpensive way to do something great for your skin. Just put it on at night. You could leave it on, they say, for like 5 minutes, but better just to leave it on overnight. But so that's something for guys to consider. You could mix it with a little bit of like coconut oil if you wanted to cut the smell down a little bit. The other thing is retinol. So retinol is something that you can get prescribed by your dermatologist. And actually, an acquaintance of mine who is a plastic surgeon, she said this is like one of the best things you can do. She's a plastic surgeon, and she's like, retinol, which had nothing to do with anything that she offered, it's just a simple way for you to help the tone of your skin as well as the fine lines and help increase production of collagen. And I got some from my dermatologist with my copay. It cost me like $12, and it
that's
lasts me
awesome.
like a couple months. So if you've ever looked at skincare products, they can be very expensive because people are willing to pay, especially women, a lot of money if somebody's going to tell them something's going to make them look younger.
Yeah.
So this is just castor oil and retinol are just really inexpensive ways to help you with those fine lines and bringing collagen and plumpness back to your skin. Are you using any of those products?
I'm not using, well, I think I am. I get it from Julia, who does my facial. So I've got some toners and different things. I don't know what's in it because
Yeah.
she won't tell me,
Well,
but
some of them might have retinol.
Yeah.
When you buy it over the counter, the retinol is at a lower level. If you go to a dermatologist, it can be at a higher level. And you have to be really careful not to be in the sun when you take that. And of course, you would get that direction from your dermatologist because you're just be more sensitive to sun when you're using retinol. So those are the skincare products to be thinking about using. And then, of course, there's like the more med spa treatments that are available. Women are using them widely. Men are starting to more and more. So the most common is Botox. The 11s that men sometimes get, right in their forehead. Those can be treated and lessened, if not completely, eliminated. Men will also use Botox around their eye wrinkles. And one thing with Botox is if you wait too long, you might not be able to get out those deep crevices. So it might be something to think about if you think you might be prone to getting, like your smile lines around your eyes, was primarily where those come. Some people get real deep crevices there. So a little Botox there. And you can do, and again, just like with the hair color, some people will look at Botox, people who use too much Botox, and be like, well, I don't want to look like that guy or that gal where their forehead doesn't move. And, that is not what has to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody might try to sell you too much Botox, but you do not need to have enough Botox that anyone would actually know that you've had it done. And the other thing is filler. So what filler does, where Botox would maybe eliminate the wrinkles around your eyes or your forehead, the filler would be where people would use around like their jawline. So when people get older, they start to get more creases around their mouth. So men could have that injected, start lifting up their cheek a little bit, and then that gets rid of that crease around their mouth. I don't advise them to do their lips. Yeah, save that for the ladies, or maybe not. How are we on time?
I think it's about that time.
Okay. All right. There's a few other things, but
well, we can touch on those next week. But I mean, you've given us some great stuff to work on today. But I'm most excited to go and do a little research on the collagen too, and different ways I can work on that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, microneedling is really great for that. I just want to throw that in there.
And you call it the gray camo, is that
gray
right?
camo
For the hair. That's good. That sounds like a good product. That's one I can get behind because I know I'm not going to look ridiculous.
Yeah, and it is really the fastest way to take some years off.
All right, Celeste Trapp from Harem in studio. I appreciate your time. That was awesome today.
Thank you, Chad.
What do you have to do now? enjoy the sun?
I got to go to a friend's house for dinner.
All
Lucky me.
right.
Sit outside, enjoy the sun.
All right, Celeste Trapp. We'll come back. Michael Holton's going to be in studio, and we'll focus in on the NBA playoffs. But a big thanks to Celeste, What Women Want, here on the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing.
Tatum across midcourt with 10. Top of the key with 8. Defended by Robinson with 7. Right wing 3. Crossover. Foul line with 4. Left block. Step back. Stolen by Bridges. Bridges chucks it down court. They've done it again. They've done it again. The New York Knicks take both in Boston, and a 2-0 lead heading back to the Mecca.
Oh, what a great time. Michael Holton, former Trailblazer, current radio and television analyst, in studio with me again. How great have these games been, brother?
Man, I've just really enjoyed it. I mean, the pressurized possessions, the shock and awe. But, you know, Chad, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're watching playoff basketball, and we're watching defense and rebounding on the day.
Yes. All right. I got to talk about a lot of different things. Let's start with this. You were talking about the pressurized or the pressure-packed situations in the playoffs, which I love. What I'm really impressed by with Jalen Brunson right now is, and you know this because you talked about it last week, like these teams are so well prepared for key situations in games, and the Celtics have an array of defenders who can guard, right, and get after a guy like Brunson. And yet here he is in clutch time, night in and night out, getting to his spots and being able to hit shots from different angles and always come through for the Knicks. Like, and he's a smaller guy. And not only that, but he's actually doing a good job defensively of winning some of those one-on-one battles. Like, I'm blown away by Brunson right now.
No, it's the fundamentals, though, that are the foundation of his game. I want to say many fundamental, but I don't. Many's not an endearing term. I was thinking about Tim Duncan, right?
Yes.
They call him the big fundamental, right?
Yep.
And so I'm looking at Jalen Brunson, and basketball is a game of executing fundamental skills under pressure.
Yes.
No more, no less. And he does that. And he creates the separation, and he has the fundamentals and the footwork to execute in all situations.
It's so impressive. All right, the big talk over the first two games of that series, now that the Knicks are going back home up 2-0 against a team that was heavily favored, and Madison Square Garden on Saturday afternoon is going to be off the chain. You know that. But the Celtics are a three-point shooting team. They shot more threes than anybody else in the league this year. They were 15 of 60 in game one. They were 10 of 40 in game number 2. Now, I want to ask you this with the Celtics. Is there a point in time, I know how the analytics work. I've talked to a couple guys this week, and for what I've been told, the analytics side would say just continue to shoot threes because with variance, you're eventually going to start making shots at the normal clip. And the idea is they want to put up more threes than their opponent, right? But my thought is like, shouldn't you have something else in your repertoire as an offense where if things aren't going well in a game, you can have some actions or something to get better looks or something closer to the basket that are higher percentage?
Yes. So playoff basketball, in my opinion, it's about matchups and it's about shot selection. Can you get the right favorable matchup and exploit it? That's what playoffs are about. And I want to comment on the analytics thing. I think analytics need to reset for the playoffs. So regular season analytics, threes, most games that we call, we're talking about the three-point line, either one team owned the three-point line or one team struggled from behind the three-point line or one team didn't defend the three-point line well. I mean, but the three-point narrative is associated with most regular season games, not the playoffs.
Yes.
We're looking at these playoffs and all of a sudden, wait a minute. The team that shoots the most threes is not favored. Boston is Exhibit A. This is a different season of basketball.
Yes. And right now, what's crazy, the Knicks in points, they're +3 through 2 games at the three-point line against the team that shoots the three ball better than anybody.
Yeah. And, you know, I've never been a fan of volume three-point shooting as a style and a philosophy. I just, you know, you can call it generational or the way I grew up playing. I'm cut from the cloth of what you're saying. Okay, if I'm not knocking down jumpers, get to the paint, get to the free throw line. You know, find a different way to impact the game. Turn up the dial on defense. Create a turnover. Get out in the open court. Don't shoot more threes because the law of averages says that the more you shoot, the numbers are going to work in your favor. I never subscribed to that theory.
What's interesting about New York is that all the moves that they made with the effort to get Karl Anthony Towns, they got OG Anunoby, they went out and sent out the draft picks to get Mikal Bridges. They constructed their team to deal with Boston, right? Because they knew that Boston was the best team in the East, and if they wanted to get to a championship, at some point they'd have to go through Boston. So it's neat to see a team go through a process and then have it come to fruition in this series right now. Now, again, the series is not over, but the Knicks getting some dividends from those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the style of basketball that the Knicks play because they're tough. They follow the personality of their coach. They defend. They space the floor. They share the ball. They're tough, and they rebound. And you start looking at the personnel. You go OG Anunoby. You go Josh Hart. You start looking at their personnel, and then you start looking at the personnel on the wing and around the fringes, and Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson, and you just look at how their team, to your point, was put together.
Yeah.
It was put together for such a time as this.
Yeah, and I've noticed throughout the course of the season, like there's a certain togetherness with that group. Maybe it's the Villanova connection. They clearly play hard for their coach, but you have a bunch of guys willing to take on whatever role is necessary on a night in and night out basis. And when you have teams like that, you're going to have success. I like it.
Oh, I like the chemistry. And, I love it when the coaches are mic'd and they take us in the huddle. And you and I both know that there's certain things they can't air, strategies and et cetera. But there was a Tom Thibodeau bite that they did play that I loved. And he said, don't play in traffic. If you get in traffic, move the basketball to somebody that's not going to play in traffic. And I was like, he said the quiet part out loud. Basketball is a simple game complicated by people, right?
Yeah.
If there's two guys in front of you, pass the ball.
Yes, and I've heard you talk about that throughout the course of the year with the Blazers, where sometimes the offense would get bogged down, and you were just talking about poor spacing, right? Where the Blazers, they were too clogged, and there was too much traffic without the proper spacing.
Yeah, and I thought about that when I saw the final possession that the Celtics had with Jason Tatum, trying to play hero ball and save the day, and the defense just collapsed. I was like, wow, Boston is struggling when they don't control the pace of play by three-point shooting.
All right. In the other series, 1-1 now, Oklahoma City and Denver. The game one was awesome. It was a great watch. I want your thoughts on Jokic from that game. 42 points, 22 rebounds, and 6 assists. And then they showed the highlight where during one of the timeouts, he kind of took over and was communicating with his teammates. So what are your thoughts on Jokic being a little more vocal and what you're seeing from his play?
I think he's a competitor, and that's what's coming out. And, and he has leadership courage. I thought before the coaching change, we didn't really see that side of him.
Yeah.
But I think that side of him existed. They probably saw it in the locker room or in practice, but, his situational awareness that more is needed right now.
Mm-hmm.
From a leadership standpoint, more is needed. So, he's trying to, whip the horse across the finish line, so to speak. He's like, hey, guys, wake up. We're in a playoff series.
Yeah. What would you think about Coach Adelman giving Jokic the space to be able to communicate with his team? Maybe some coaches wouldn't be comfortable doing that in a playoff game situation.
Yeah, most coaches would with the right player.
Oh, it's got to be the right guy.
It's got to be the right guy. The 12th man can't take over the huddle.
Now, if Jokic wants to speak, though, I mean, he's the franchise, and if he wants to communicate, it's probably a good idea to let him do that.
Yeah, leadership, leadership has privileges, right? I mean, and has responsibilities. And so when I see Jokic, I see him accepting the responsibilities that there needs to be a sense of urgency. Or it needs to be a greater sense of urgency, I should say.
Man, Oklahoma City, they put up a NBA record, 87 points in the first half last night. Do you think that was just a case where Denver got the split and they kind of let go of the rope a little bit in game two?
I don't know what it was, Chad, but I couldn't watch the second half. It was so bad. It
was bad.
Beating them down so bad. I was like, this is not healthy. I mean, I love basketball, but there was nothing competitive about the game to watch. And I found myself in another room. I'm like, wow, I am not interested in this game.
I agree. It was unwatchable basketball. Does a loss that bad, does it linger at all, or are you just on to the next one?
No, pros are really good at processing. Pros are really good at processing. And you look back long enough to learn, then you don't look back anymore. You look at it, you put a frame on the picture, you put a bow on it, and then you come out of that with an understanding of what went wrong and what needs to go right.
All right. The other surprise is Indiana shocking Cleveland, getting the first two games on the road, and now they're going back home feeling real good about themselves. And I know you've been impressed with Indiana, their style of play throughout the year, but because they play so fast and they're relentless in their attack, do you think that maybe in a playoff series, like when you match up against Indiana, like it takes a moment to kind of recalibrate because of the way they play?
Yeah, Indiana, to me, they play so fast that you feel like you're always going to have a chance to get back in the game.
Yeah.
Because the game's going to have a lot of possessions because they're just going to keep playing at that pace. But they've made an adjustment in the playoffs. And so the adjustment they've made is on the defensive end. They are more engaged defensively, and they're dictating the terms of engagement on the defensive end, and they're actually playing slower in the half court, getting the matchup and the space that is preferable.
Well, why do you think they're more locked in defensively? Is that just a matter of postseason play, guys being more locked in and focused, or game plan, or something the coach said? Why would that be?
Well, I want to give the organization credit first. I think it's an organizational culture that creates an environment where players can flourish, i.e. Rick Carlisle has been around. I think, and it wasn't hard to sell his team on the fact that we're not supposed to beat Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that wasn't hard to sell.
Yeah.
And so when you have your team's attention like that, we could be embarrassed in this series, or we could engage this game plan and impact this game by doing A, B, and C. And I think they're doing A, B, C, D, and E.
What do you think the message is from a coach in a situation like Kenny Atkinson, where your team, dealt with some injuries in game 2, you're in an 0-2 hole going on the road? So what are you trying to communicate to your guys?
You're reminding your guys of how good they are. Because sometimes, believe it or not, pros need a shot of confidence.
Even for a 64-win team.
Even for a 64-win team, you got to remind them, hey, guys, we won 64 games. And here's who we are. Here's what we're about. And sometimes you got to show the feel-good video. You got to edit it up and put some music to it and show the highlights to your guys. And guys get that good love and feeling again so they get that swagger back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it the same type of message if you're Coach Missoula with Boston, or is it different based on the way those two games have played out?
Boston is different to me than the Cleveland situation. I think, Cleveland has, I think, an easier button to push to refresh.
Mm-hmm.
I think Boston has, they're dug in about how good they are. Right? They probably aren't sure they're down 0-2.
Yeah.
They just feel like, okay, we'll flip the switch. But what we're seeing in the playoffs is the flipping of the switch in terms of three-point shooting, the flipping of the switch in terms of space for stars to perform, i.e. Jason Tatum, and I want to say Jaylen Brown. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah. So they're not getting room to operate. They're used to isolating, and just Jaylen Brown can just use his physicality. Jason Tatum can use his separation, but they're fragile right now because the defense is interrupting their comfort.
All right, the other series that's been fascinating, Steph Curry's going to be out for an extended period of time. We don't know if he's going to come back in this series or not. They got game 1. I've been impressed with Steve Kerr, especially in that work in game 1 where he got enough from the role players to step up and, at least protect the lead, and they were able to get the win in game 1. So Steph Curry is so vital to everything that they do. So what's the approach for Steve Kerr now without Steph Curry?
Well, they won a game that he didn't play a majority of the minutes and certainly didn't impact the game statistically.
Correct.
And I think it's Draymond Green's team, and I'm not a Draymond Green fan, right? But I'm looking at his leadership, and he's the stabilizing factor and force for that team to play the right way.
And do you think now we'll see, is this a case where Jimmy Butler will take on just a more workload on offense to be kind of a shot maker, or do you expect them to continue with the same type of ball movement with different guys getting shots?
Well, I think there'll be a hybrid. Jimmy Butler, his situational awareness, he'll get to the free throw line more. He'll put more pressure on the defense. He won't necessarily take more shots, but he'll put more pressure on the defense. See, those things aren't synonymous. People think, oh, offensively, I just got to take a lot of shots. I got to take and make a lot of shots. Well, yeah, there's a value in making shots. But in the playoffs, I think there's a parallel value of breaking the defense down and getting to the free throw line and setting your defense and creating space for your teammates to have success.
Minnesota had some ugly offense in game 1. I'm wondering if, they were off for like a week, and Golden State was coming out of a bloodbath with Houston. Do you think sometimes a long layoff in the playoffs can be disruptive to the mindset? Like, how do you explain what we saw there? Because their execution was poor.
Yeah, I get the rhythm versus rest. I like that argument and that conversation. To me, the problem with Minnesota is that they're playing like tuxedo players. I mean, they got undeserved swagger, right? I mean, you got to roll up your sleeves and play.
Yeah.
And that's why their coach just kind of sounded the alarm like, yo, it starts with Anthony. We got to play.
Yeah, I would think it would be easier. My concern for Minnesota going into the series with Steph healthy was, the Steph Curry's ability to put, bigs in compromising situations with the screen and roll, by dictating matchups. Well, now Steph's not in the game, so it should free up some of their bigs, and you have less scramble and recovery to get to shooters in the corner. So, do you think the bigs, do you think like Rudy Gobert and some of these other guys will thrive a little bit more without Steph on the floor?
I think Minnesota's in trouble, and because Golden State moves the basketball, and teams that move the basketball are going to manufacture quality shots and are going to dictate the terms of engagement. The ball's not going to move less with Steph out of the lineup. It's going to move more.
All right. What else is jumping out at you before you go? What else is jumping out at you with the playoffs right now?
Just the shock of the top two teams in the East being down 0-2. I'm sitting there scratching my head because, I subscribe to the theory that in a 7-game series, the better team's going to win.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going, okay. Now, it's shaking my confidence.
I know.
Right? Like, is Boston better than the Knicks? I don't think so. Is Cleveland better than Indiana? I think so.
Yeah.
But they're down 0-2.
So, like, Boston's in legit, like, they're in some trouble right now, aren't they?
They are, because I just don't think that they have a collective competitive spirit about the defensive end. Now, they can get it or get it back, but that's the undercurrent of teams that rely on threes. They just want to shoot you into submission.
Yes.
And in the playoffs, you got to play defense with your offense.
Explain that real quick.
Well, long shots produce long rebounds. You shoot a volume of threes. Boston missed 75 threes in 2 games. So that's 75 rebounds that potentially were long. That could be the first pass to Indiana's fast break, and Indiana is an open court pace team. So you're feeding the pace of the game. So you're not playing defense with your offense. You're fueling your opponent's offense.
All right, I got to give you some props. Grandpa's getting it done because who's this little beauty we got in the studio here?
Ananiah, I brought my granddaughter with me. We were hanging, turning corners. My wife is out of town at a family graduation on the East Coast. So I'm manning the ship. And so I said, hey, let's go to the radio station. I have a radio show. She's like, what's a radio station?
Hey, Naya, thanks for coming in. It's good to see you. She's so well behaved, Michael.
Well, she hangs with me, man. She knows how to get it done.
She's at peace with her game.
She's at peace with her game, and so I promised to take her to dinner, and so we are hanging out.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming by, man. We got more good games to talk about, but these playoffs have been fun.
No, I can't wait. I'm going home to get on the couch and watch.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Big thanks to Michael Holton on hoops. Big thanks to Naya for hanging out in studio with us. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Minnesota may end this game before the end of the show. 13-0 Timberwolves with 7:17 to play in the first quarter. So they're playing with the urgency that you would expect after blowing the opener at home with that horrendous offensive performance. And what was it? Michael Holton said they were playing like a tuxedo team, or like a team that's accomplished something, but they're playing with purpose tonight. So we'll see how things shake out. But it's going to be tough for the Warriors over the next few games without Steph Curry to be able to, generate enough points. It's nice to have Jimmy Butler, but I'll be anxious to see what they can do over the next few games. So they'll be in Minnesota tonight before they shift the scene to San Francisco for games 3 and 4. So there you have it. But yeah, that's going to be tough. Yeah, Minnesota's playing with purpose tonight. They're not screwing around. Rudy Gobert with the steal. Yeah, it's going to be, I just wanted some compelling action. But the problem is when you get in some of these playoff games where a team drops a game at home, I mean, you've seen the routine before. A lot of times the team will bounce back. You get a blowout situation. Like we saw last night with Oklahoma City. They came out with the determination, like, we're not going to get beaten game 2. We're going to put ourselves in a position to get back on track going into Denver. So there you have it. Again, coming up on Monday, big day here in Rip City with the NBA Draft Lottery. It's going to kick off at 4 o'clock on ESPN, but the Trailblazers have put together some viewing parties to where you can have a good experience to see where the Blazers are going to be selecting in the NBA Draft, and the hopes and prayers that we have that they land the number 1 pick and have access to Cooper Flag, which would be amazing, obviously. 3 locations, and each location is going to have giveaways, Rip City swag, and a chance to enter to win tickets to the opening night game for next season. And they'll have meet and greet with the Blazer dancers. You can have something to eat, get a nice beverage, and just look out for the neon Rip City Runs Deep sign in the window. That's the signal to identify the Rip City Bar Network. It's presented by Michelob Ultra. So if you're in Beaverton, go to the Pit Stop Sports Bar and Grill at 10245 Southwest Canyon Road in Beaverton. You can also hit the Rogue Eastside Pub, 928 Southeast 9th Avenue. Or in Vancouver at Penalty Sports Pub at 115 East 7th Street in Vancouver. And you can check out more on the Rip City Bar Network at trailblazers.com/bar network. But that's the plan for Monday, and the lottery kicks off at 4 o'clock before the NBA playoff action. The Blazers have a 3.7% chance to jump all the way up to number 1, and they have just under a 20% chance to jump into the top 4. But that's what's taking place on Monday. Just one basketball game tonight, Warriors and Timberwolves, which is on right now. And then tomorrow we get back to some terrific action with the night game being the Denver-Oklahoma City game in the Mile High City, which is going to be awesome. So tomorrow you're going to get Game 3, Cavs and Pacers from Indiana. That's at 4:30 on ESPN. At 7 on ESPN, Thunder and Nuggets from Denver. Oklahoma City is actually a 5.5-point favorite in that game. Cleveland is favored by 2.5 in Game 3 against Indiana. And then on Saturday, the game I'm most excited about now, 12:30 on ABC, Celtics and Knicks from Madison Square Garden. And right now the Celtics are in an 0-2 hole coming off of back-to-back home losses. This is going to be the biggest home game at Madison Square Garden for the Knicks since 1999 with their trip to the finals when they got knocked out by San Antonio. Isn't that amazing how long it's been? 26 years. Biggest home game for the Knicks in 26 years. And it's going to take place on Saturday at 12:30. I'm loving these playoffs. It's going to be nice. Going to be nice. Outside of that, the extended forecast, oh, my goodness. I just want nothing but sunshine every day. It looks like we could have some rain on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Nothing severe, but that's what we're looking at. And then we'll get right back into drier weather on Wednesday, Thursday, some rain on Friday, but the weekend, Saturday, all the way up until the 22nd, looks like we're going to have some better weather, which is good golf, which means you can get out to Forest Hills Golf Course Just go to golfforesthills.com to book your tee times and check out their daily deals. Big thanks to Michael Shacker. Thanks for your time. Big thanks to Celeste Trapp and Michael Holton for joining me in studio. Enjoy the sunshine. Have a good night. And we'll be back tomorrow with the Rip City Drive at 3 on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.